Welcome to another episode of the Healing Space podcast with your hosts, Katelyn Baker and Cara. Today we have a very special guest. I am super excited that she's here. The lovely Cristina Curp. Yay!
Good to be here.
Welcome. So Cristina,
Yes.
tell us about who you are and what you do, and then we'll dive into the good stuff.
Okay. So I'm a chef and a nutritionist, and I've been working in the like autoimmune chronic illness space for about a decade. When I realized that, I have my own autoimmune stuff was kind of going bananas, especially postpartum after I had my son, and it just was very difficult time, generally speaking. And I dove into that world, and it was really interesting to find that community online and knowing like, oh my God, I'm not alone, and other people deal with hidradenitis suppurativa and all these other chronic inflammatory symptoms. And as someone whose world revolves around food, making food, feeding people, photographing food. I mean, food is everything. It became this tool for me. I think coping slash healing, it was like double, it was like multifaceted, right? It was, and I found a lot of relief there. And so I've shared that with the world. And it's interesting how much that's evolved, right? Like what my content was like when I was going through my own healing to like versus being on the other side, and how much, it's also been 10 years. Like I've learned a lot, I've matured a lot. So I feel like sometimes when you come out the other side, things are, what is it like clear? What is it? Like in 2020, everything's so much clearer. Hindsight is 2020. There you go. Good Lord.
We got there. That's okay.
We got it. And so it's been really cool to continue to evolve in this space and be able to, work with people who are in the beginning or maybe not like that evolved that much in their journey, and be like, okay, you don't have to be so crazy, because people tend to be really like into extremes when it comes to diet and nutrition, especially on the internet. Good Lord. Like I feel like the more extreme your views are, the more viral you are. And so I'm kind of like the person, the curmudgeon in the corner being like, nuance is important,
Like the old man, like, get off my lawn. Like,
it's very great work, and I love food, and I continue to like, I private chef for a lot of people with chronic illness. That's like my main, thing. And continue to advocate for HS. And it's been really cool in the last like year or so doing more work specifically with the HS community, because the greater autoimmune community is amazing and chronic illness space, but hidradenitis suppurativa is such a unique experience that like being with our people has been, exponentially rewarding.
yeah, I love that. So, because this is a therapy-based podcast, I want to get into kind of a heavy topic, so let's give a trigger warning to any of our viewers who are sensitive to food issues, eating issues. We're going to be talking about that. So go ahead and skip to the next episode. This one's not for you. But tell us about what is your experience with this community in particular, with eating habits, eating issues, patterns you see, all of it.
They really run the gambit, right? So I would think that the biggest one I see is this obsession with weight loss, because we are told, to include myself, since at a very young age, that we need to lose weight. We have HS because we're overweight. Which I know Cara and I, we talked about, like you being a thin person and being told to lose weight, and you're like, where?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I
Where?
went from being like a healthy weight to severely underweight, and it was far worse than any of my symptoms from being chronically ill, being that underweight. And guess what? The HS was still there.
So we see people losing a large amounts of weight, or being at a healthy weight and then getting underweight. So that's one that we see a lot. People just, they're getting bariatric surgery, or they're doing extreme weight loss, like extreme calorie deficits. That one's really tough. And then of course there's a lot of people diving into elimination diets and very restrictive diet things. Just today, someone's like, you gotta do carnivore, it's gonna heal everything. And I'm like, no. Because there's a lot of information online, and there's different things that work for different people. Like I use an elimination diet, but I only did it for 4 months, and I added in foods as quickly as possible because that's what you're supposed to do. and so, but people get food fear and then they're told that it's their fault. And there's this miscommunication of like, even if something's a tool, it doesn't mean it's a cause. Tools for management don't equate causes. And that's where people mess up. They think, oh, because you could use diet to maybe manage some symptoms. Oh, it's diets, it's causes this. So I have to be crazy with food. But that's not how that works. And so, we see a lot of that. And then there's the other side where because we're dealing with chronic illness, pain, fatigue, and all the emotional, like, and the depression and anxiety that comes with HS. So sometimes food can be this, comfort. And so it's like, I'm too tired. Or I'm in too much pain to stand and cook. I don't have the energy to cook. And so relying on, pre-made things or fast food or frozen things or things that might not make you feel your best otherwise, but it's all that you can manage. And so there can be this sense of feeling stuck. I'm too sick to prepare my own foods. I'm sick because I can't prepare my own foods, and round and round and round it goes. So there's so many aspects of managing nutrition and managing HS, which is in and of itself overwhelming and exhausting so much of the time.
And hearing that, right? Like our daily lives we just have to think about more things than the average person does. And then you add in, is this food gonna trigger something, or is it gonna make me feel terrible? Like, yeah, and it is a lot. And how do you, like, I would imagine navigating that leads to a lot of restriction and, like you said, like the fear of food, which, because then it becomes a point of like, what can you eat, and being terrified that if you don't know what the causes are, you're afraid of everything. And I imagine that can lead to, like, down the road, to some severe restrictive disorder behavior.
For sure. I think that we also live, I think society in general, right? So a lot of times also people confuse, and going back to the weight thing, where people confuse like an anti-inflammatory diet with eating for weight loss, and they're not the same thing either. So that's another thing where people don't realize, like, you can eat in a way that makes, balances your blood sugar, helps your hormones, is super nutrient dense, and not lose weight. Maybe gain weight. Maybe you need to gain weight. And people really have a struggle with that because they're like, people will be like, but I've been eating so healthy, and they're eating like boiled chicken and lettuce, and like super sad food that doesn't taste like anything.
Nutrients, and yeah, you need some flavor.
Yeah, and food should be enjoyable, right? It's this very human experience to enjoy food and share food. And I think that that's part of healing. Like, I think if you are scared of food, if you're not enjoying the food you're eating, it doesn't matter what it is, it's not going to be good for you. The way that stress impacts our digestion, our ability to digest food properly, the way, you can't out diet certain things, right? And I think that's where people go wrong, where they get stuck in this obsession of, well, it's going to fix everything for me. And I know, because that was me at one point. I definitely thought I could, you know, figure it all out, with diet. And I realized that you can't, if you're not sleeping. I call it big rocks, little rocks, right? So like big rocks, you're not sleeping, you don't feel safe at home. Your job is literally stressing you out all the time. Your kids are sick all the time, whatever it is. I work with people who have a number of issues, right? Where they're stressed out, chronically stressed, not sleeping well, don't have access. If you don't have access, if you live in a food desert, if you're working 3 jobs, and like, you don't, there's just so many lifestyle factors outside of diet, which are big rocks, that it doesn't matter what you eat. If you can't change these things or address them somehow, it's going to be really hard to get to a place where what the food that you put in your body is going to move the needle in any way, shape, or form. So like big rocks, little rocks. Also, before you start moving, like taking food groups out, like try and sleep 8 hours a night.
Right. Like, let's start it at the basics of. I actually really like that. Like, what other forms of self care are you engaging in before we're going to dramatic dietary changes? I love that approach.
Yeah.
That's really smart.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that you see, especially with mothers. Mothers are the most self-sacrificing people on the planet. And so you have women with chronic illness who take care of everybody around them and literally don't take a minute for themselves ever. They're getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep, and they've been doing it for years. They're eating every meal in the car, staying in the kitchen while they're doing a million other tasks, and they haven't done something that makes them happy, that fills their cup in forever. And so they're just depleted. And of course, I think it's like a personality thing. Like, I don't know if we're all like hyper independent or it's our ADHD or what, but we all just want to do it all and take it all on and not ask for help. And that surrender of like, I have a chronic illness. My body does not operate like other people, and that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need to say no. I need to put boundaries. Boundaries. It's a huge rock that many people don't understand.
This is the
Boulder.
biggest rock that there ever was.
You can't say no to people. If you can't say no to your mother-in-law who comes over at all hours and stresses you out, or your friend at church who is always, making you feel bad about whatever, that person that you just have to be like, step back, those situations. So boundaries is another big one where a lot of people with chronic illness, we have guilt over being a burden. And so we like overcompensate by trying to make people happy all the time, and we wear ourselves out. And so again, that's a big rock that diet's not gonna fix.
And it's like a cycle of rocks. It's like jumping from one to like maybe a little bit of a smaller one, but then the next hurdle could be just twice as big, or yeah, it's a lot. I also am curious if you've ever experienced anyone who will like eat trigger foods and then throw them up because of the effects. I know I've seen that in other communities, but I don't know about HS, like if that is happening as well.
I haven't had anyone admit that to me. I've definitely spoken to people who will panic and freak out and like overcorrect or fast. Maybe they'll like eat a trigger and then they feel like they have to fast. But unfortunately, there's people online who give that advice. I'm not gonna name names, but there was someone who was pretty early on in the HS space was very influential, and their latest content, which luckily was a while ago, but that was their thing. It's like, yeah, you can eat whatever you want as long as you just fast for 3 days after. And I'm like, that's super weird.
Oh, 3 days?
3 days, yeah. And it's so bizarre because, I've the way that I've tried to explain in my second book, I actually explain it this way. I'm like, there's no good and bad foods, right? Because people then start talking about food as good and bad. And food has no morality, right? So even if a food triggers me, like tomatoes trigger me, but they're not bad. Tomatoes are great. They have tons of nutrients. They're delicious. They just don't work for me. So I have what I call my feel-good foods that make me feel really good. And then I have foods that are like worth it foods, which are like, they make me feel great. No. Do I eat them sometimes? Absolutely. And then I have
Great.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have my hard no, which is like, I'm gonna be violently ill for a long time. This is not okay. Like gluten for me makes me feel like I'm dying for a week at least. So, and it's not just my skin. I mean, it is joint pain, it is digestive issues, it is a brain fog, it's like depression.
Worried side effects, yeah.
Right. Like that's not worth it. It's okay. I'm okay without gluten, but it's not bad. Gluten's not bad. If I could eat sourdough, if I could eat pasta, I would, like if I could eat it, I really would.
Yeah, yeah. But you also, I feel like some people do this, and I know I'm guilty of this too, of being like, I know that this is gonna trigger me later, and I do it anyways. What advice would you have for anybody that really struggles with that? With like, maybe their favorite food is their biggest trigger food. What the heck are they supposed to do?
Yeah, asking for a friend.
Yeah, I'm asking for her.
Yeah.
So I used to eat like sheet pans of my favorite thing was eggplant, and I would do the thick sliced eggplant smothered in garlic with salt, pepper, and like a ton of olive oil, and just roast it and just literally eat the entire sheet pan. Eggplant was like a food group for me. And nightshades, I mean, roasted peppers, oh my romesco sauce, oh my gosh, like heirloom tomato grilled cheese sandwiches. Like, let me tell you, it was a whole thing. And I lived in San Diego, and they were amazing. I would do like on sourdough with Tillamook cheddar. I mean, it was a whole thing. It was a vibe. And sometimes, and I can still taste them. Like, oh my god, I miss them, and I know how delicious it would be. But where I got to a point where I started feeling so good in my body, like, it's because for me, it's not just my skin. And I think that that's a thing that we have to realize with HS. It's never just your skin, right? There's overall fatigue and sometimes joint pain that comes, or flu-like symptoms and digestive things. So I woke up one day feeling like it's like living with a hangover forever and then waking up and not being hungover. That was kind of the difference that I felt. And I was like, oh my God, this is the world. It's like not seeing and then having glasses and being able to see clearly, like that kind of aha moment for me. And I realized that I deserve to feel that good every day. I deserve that. And so that food is not worth me feeling not 100%.
Yeah, you do
Yeah.
deserve it. We
Yes.
all do,
We do.
honestly.
I think everyone deserves, and so I love other foods. And so now I love slow roasted carrots and they're caramelized. I love, I mean, I still eat cookies and brownies. I just make them a version that I can eat, you
Right.
know?
Gluten-free or whatever. Yeah, whatever that looks
Right.
like.
So I make versions of all the things that I love, but in a way that makes me feel good, and then there's the moments that are sort of worth it. There's a place around the corner that they make the best gluten-free pizza, and it has speck and gorgonzola on it. And I normally don't eat dairy, but when I eat that pizza, you better believe I eat it because it's worth it that moment. And I feel bloated for a little bit, but I'll be okay.
Right. Sometimes you have to like I have a allergy to egg, like a protein in eggs, but sometimes I'm like I have nothing to do today, so if I have a tummy ache later, it's okay. I did it to myself. But it's hard to do when it's like everything that you eat or everything around you. Living.
So you have to have a hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to prioritize like kind of everything is because this is the way to think about it. Even in elimination diets, and I don't know if you guys know this, but the way that the autoimmune protocol, which is like a big elimination diet that a lot of people use, the way that the foods on the AIP list were decided, there were pros and cons weighed against each other, nutrient density versus anti-nutrients and like reactability. And so, but everyone's got their own list. So like screw the AIP list, what's your list of pros and cons, right? Because it's so interesting when we understand the science of how our body reacts to foods and how we create antibodies to like everything that we eat. So pretty much everything we eat, we're reacting to on a minute level in a weird way. Like our immune system is kind of like, what are you doing in here? Stranger danger, you know?
Imagine it's what was that one movie like Osmosis Jones or something? Yeah, where it's like everything that you put in the stomach is like confused and like where the heck am I supposed to put this? And I think that draws a really strong mindful connection to your body and what you're actually putting into it and trying to get that interoceptive awareness of how does this food make me feel? How do I feel before I ate it? How do I feel after? How do I feel 2 hours after? And that gets into kind of an intuitive eating space, which I don't know how much you know about intuitive eating, Christina, but that's something that I am pretty well versed in and try to preach to everybody to do because I think it's super cool to listen to your body because it tells you exactly what it wants and needs. If you're listening.
But a lot know how to listen. I will say that I didn't learn this until I was almost 30. And it was weird because the way I'm in tune with my body now, like I went through like pregnancy being not in tune with my body. And I remember like it was such a weird disassociation of like what was happening here. And I think I just disassociated so much because my HS was so bad for so long that like you just disassociate from your body because you don't want to deal with it. I was flaring so bad. I mean, I was really bad during pregnancy and oh my God. And then postpartum was like even worse. Like the 2 years where I was nursing postpartum, my HS was, and I developed it under my breast while I was breastfeeding.
Before we dive back into today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank UCB Pharmaceuticals for making the Healing Space podcast possible. At UCB, they believe in looking beyond the symptoms and seeing the whole person. They understand that living with hidradenitis suppurativa means more than managing physical health. It's about supporting mental health too. Their commitment to our community, to innovation, advocacy, and compassion is what makes partnerships like this so meaningful. We're so grateful to have UCB standing beside us, helping us create a space where healing is more than a goal. It's a journey we take together. Now, let's get back to the conversation. So, in addition to the clean... Nope, that's not it. In addition to the Clean Plate Club, there are a lot of other things that we have to unlearn as well, even societally, including just all the mixed messages we get from everywhere, literally everywhere. Don't eat this, only eat this. Eat every 2 hours. Don't eat for 3 days. Like, there is just so much out there. It's like, how do you trust yourself when who knows what's right and what's wrong at this point?
When I got to a point where I got into that rhythm of like, oh, I'm hungry, so I'm gonna eat now. And like, I'm full, so I'm gonna stop now. And I remember the way I did remember describing it to my husband at the time, I was like, I felt like my stomach was like muddy, like it wasn't here nor there, because I honestly hadn't really tapped into those hunger signals, because we have the hormones like leptin and ghrelin. We literally have hormones that like give us these signals, but they can also get messed up. And yes, you're so right. Oh my God. But speaking as the kid that my mom took me to like Weight Watchers when I was 8 years old, and did like every diet clinic diet where they told me to, again, eat every 2 hours, and like the grapefruit and toast and the tuna and all those horrible things. I had no idea what my body needed or how to listen to those signals. And I also tell people like, it's not your fault that you don't know, right?
No.
Right?
No, you know
So-
how many people have the same, like the similar story of, I had to be on all these diets when I was younger. And again, it's you learn from the get-go of what it feels like to know what hunger is. You know what it feels like to just you just know too many things for being that way.
Without guilt. Like it was always a sense of either I was eating something that I hated and I wasn't enjoying it, or I was eating and feeling guilty for eating. And there was never this situation where I was just sitting down to food and feeling really good. Like I feel good about what I'm eating, I'm enjoying what I'm eating, and there's no judgment there. And it's difficult, especially when a lot of us grow up in this aside, right, from our chronic illness, but and it can also apply, right? So it doesn't matter what size your body is. When you're ill, there's always someone who's judging you for what you're putting in your mouth. The same way that when you're overweight and you're like, well, you shouldn't eat that. Well, you shouldn't eat that. Well, you shouldn't eat that. Well, like, what am I supposed to eat? Air? Like.
Listen, I'm a fat bitch, and if I'm eating a salad in public, someone would have a problem with it. They'd be like, you shouldn't have put dressing on that salad. Like, I'm not allowed to live because.
Record, salad dressing is necessary because the fat in the salad dressing helps all the nutrients in the salad become more bioavailable, so you absorb them. Listen, low fat is not it.
Amen, sister.
Anyway, so I always tell people one of the best tools for getting in tune is journaling, and not necessarily journaling what you're eating, like tracking, because I don't like tracking. For me, it's very triggering. I cannot track macros. Someone's like, oh, what your protein? I'm like, I don't know what the calories are or the amounts. Granted, as a chef, I'm very good at measuring food with my eyeballs. So like I can be like, that's 4 ounces of protein. So that's going to be a good amount of chicken to get good protein for the day, or for the, not the day, but the meal, whatever. But if I'm putting things in an app, I go bananas. I immediately start.
Because then, yeah, apps are awful. I always recommend all of any of my ED client, like, no, delete it. No. We're not doing that.
Yeah, no. But if you write down, I call like food and mood. So how you woke up feeling, what your bowel movements are, what your symptoms are for the day. You just start writing like what you're eating and how you're feeling. So you're not writing, you're just writing down what you're eating, not the amount or anything. There's no measurement. It's just whatever. And do that for 2 weeks, because sometimes we have no idea. So until you start tracking, like, or just start journaling how you're feeling, and you don't even know, you don't remember. And recall is the worst when it comes to, like, I don't know what I ate 2 days ago,
Yeah, I like that. That's amazing advice, actually.
Yeah. So I also do, before you make any changes, just see where you are, and you can start noticing like, oh, after I ate this, like I got like, maybe cranky, or I felt ill, or I had to run to the bathroom, or after this, I felt really good. And so you start noticing patterns, and that might be that's the best guiding light in terms of where you should go and where you should start making changes. And then also, I also tell people like work within what you've got, so one of the things I do when I work with my clients, I'm like, where do you like to eat? Let's look at the menu there and find out and see what, what you can eat there that would make you feel good. So once we look at their journal and we've noticed things, so if they like going to Olive Garden, but the chicken Alfredo makes them feel like trash, I'm like, all right, what else is on the menu that could be,
pry chicken Alfredo out of my cold dead hands, Cristina.
It is delicious. Don't get me wrong. I make a cauliflower Alfredo, which is really, really good and convincing actually. But I can't do dairy. It makes my stomach like really hurt.
Yeah, listen. I love Olive Garden. Tortellini Alfredo specifically.
We used to do the Stouffer's fettuccine Alfredo, and then we would literally, my mom would let us go to the kitchen and like lick the inside of the things.
Oh, and then she was like, you need to go to Weight Watchers at 8 years old.
Exactly. Oh my god.
Oh,
And
the
also just watching my
cycle.
mom die. So that was a whole thing of like when she was overweight, she was like super unhappy and hated herself. And then when she was thin, she was super happy. And then it was hard because like my sisters were always skinny and then I was the only one that was overweight. And so it was like, oh great, when you guys all look the same, you're all really happy. But when you look like me, you're depressed. So like what message does that tell me? And then she'd be like, don't be so you're beautiful the way you are. I'm like, yeah, okay. You know.
You see her trying to change her body and you're like, but you look like me. Does that mean I need to change my body too? Yeah, little Christina did not need those messages for sure.
No, it was very, very confusing. So I definitely came into the, food like healing space with all my own baggage, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. Um, but I also was able to repair a lot of that too. So when I again took the guilt out of it, and there was something about finding foods that made my body feel really good and feeling really good about it. So like when I was on the autoimmune protocol, I was eating so much food. Like was 3 to 4 times a day, I was sitting down with like a plate of food, and it was so liberating for me to be able to not be measuring or going low fat or eating bland and enjoying the food. Because I was making, I had my food blog. I was literally, the whole thing started because I was sharing these meals and I would do these really yummy things and I was having fun with it. And I was eating to my heart's content and also feeling really good. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You mean I don't have to like starve myself and I can feel good? Holy shit.
So I think that's a perfect place to wrap up and saying that it is possible to eat as much reasonably as you want, and avoid intuitively, yes, avoiding triggers that or just being more aware that probably will cause issues later. But I think that's a good spot to
always leading with like I deserve to feel well. Like I deserve to feel good. So let me make choices that help me feel good. Because if you've had vicious cycles with eating, food can be used in self-harm too. Like eating till making yourself sick, eating to make, so that punishment, that also has to end. So in leading with love for yourself and grace, you're always gonna have like make the better choices for yourself.
if you want your body to feel better, be nice to it.
Nice to it.
Yeah, be nice to it. All right. Well, Christina, thank you so much for blessing us with your knowledge. If you don't already have them, Christina just casually dropped that she wrote a second book, which means she also has a first book. So go check those out. And we got another episode coming up, so hit the button.
Yeah.